Hey guys, this is Abbie. Thanks so much for joining me today. It is a beautiful autumnal morning, really nice and, well, it was really nice and fresh. It's definitely warming up now. But today we are not going to be looking at navigation, which is what I thought we were going to be looking at. When it came to planning a navigational video, I realised something was up with my compass. And basically it has reverse polarity. So the northern end of the needle is pointing south and the southern end of the needle is pointing north. Of course, that's not very useful when it comes to wanting to teach you how to use a compass. However, the base plate of this thing can still be used, and instead we're going to be looking at estimating the distance travelled. Now that can be done through either pacing or through timing, and of course they can be used together. Say if you're in the dark or if the weather conditions are really bad, they can be used together. But in this video specifically we're going to be looking at pacing. Timing can be in another video. Now pacing is generally more accurate than timing, although it's more laborious, whereas timing is easier to do but less accurate. But anyway, pacing, let's get on to this. Now in order to use pacing you need to know how many steps you take per 100 meters, and that needs to be measured before you head off on any day hike, a trek, an expedition, anything. You should always have that figure in the back of your head. And so what we're going to do is the first exercise is measure how many steps we take per 100 meters. I know that that hedge just behind me is quite conveniently placed at 100 meters away, so I'm going to count my paces. A pace is every time your right foot hits the ground, so 1, 2, 3, 4, really quite easy. Of course this can be done with your left foot, but for the purpose of this video we're going to stick with the right. It's also worth noting that your pace changes depending on the weather conditions, the terrain under the foot, so if it's muddy or scree or ice, and of course whether you're ascending or descending. If you're going uphill, of course you're going to take smaller steps than when you're going down, and on the time of day. So later on in the day you're generally more tired, so you take smaller steps, and you know they're less kind of equal in size. So your pacing is going to be very different. But the first and very first thing you need to know is how many steps you take per 100 meters on a nice piece of flat ground like you see behind me. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go walk to that hedgerow, count how many steps I take, and then we'll go from there. One, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67. So that is 67 steps per 100 meters. I walk just beyond you there because there's a stile just behind you, and that's my 100 meter mark. So 67 steps per 100 meters. How do we put that into practice when we are on the trail? That's the question. So you should hopefully have a map and your compass that works, but you don't need the working bit right now. You just need the base plate. So you take your map, you take your compass. Your compass should have scales on it. So it'll probably have a ruler one. It'll have either a 1 to 25 or a 1 to 50 or both. Now the scale that you use needs to mirror the scale that you use on your map, or the scale that your map is. So this map is a 1 to 25, therefore I need to use the 1 to 25 scale on this compass. From there you take your scale and you line up from where you are to where you want to go to, and you measure the distance. So I want to go from, where am I now? Here we go, this is where I am. From here, and I want to travel to here. Quite conveniently, that is exactly 500 meters. So I know that that is going to be 67 times 5. Now, I'm not asking you to do the math here. This is where pacing is rather interesting. If you're tired, which you're more likely going to be if you've been on the trail for quite a long time, especially if it's been a long day of navigation, you need ways to keep a record of how many 100 meters you've traveled. And of course if you're traveling with somebody else, the distraction of people talking to you can make you forget how far you've done. So there's different ways to count how many 100 meters you've walked. You can either use your fingers, so 100 meters, another 100 meters, another 100 meters, another 100 meters, another 100 meters, and now I know I've traveled my 500 meters. Some people use beads on their compass string. I personally just use the finger method, but of course there could be strings on here, beads on here, so you can move those up and down so you know how many 100 meters you've done. You could actually physically write down, do a tally, how many 100 meters you've done. It's different ways, work for different people, but you need to keep a physical record of how far you have travelled, just because it's going to be more accurate. You're not relying on your mind, which could be focused on other things. So make sure you have a physical record of how far you have travelled. So that's pretty much it when it comes to pacing. It's all about knowing how many steps you take per 100 meters and being able to put that into practice when you're actually out in the field. Nice and easy, can be very accurate. Having said that, over a longer distance, say 700 meters or so, there's actually a 30% chance of error. So say if you're traveling 1 kilometer, you don't reach the destination or the rock face or whatever it is that you're looking for, you may want to take another 30% or move another 30% further in order to see if you reach your destination. If that makes any sense. Basically, keep going for a little bit longer and you might just find what you're looking for. So in the next video I'll either be looking at timings or we'll be looking at how to use a map and a compass together. It all depends on whether or not I get a new compass in time. Actually, having said that, I'm away next week, or next Sunday when this next video is due to be released, so I'll probably have it out on the Friday for you guys, just to make sure you get something every week. But I'll look forward to seeing you then. Thank you very much for watching. All I ask from you now is that you head outside, you work out your pacing per 100 meters, and maybe comment below, let me know how many steps you take per 100 meters. I'll be interested to find out. Cheers then guys, take care.